I can work with almost anybody. I can work under almost any circumstances. I can get along. I don't have to like love you, but I can get along with almost anybody. So if you're acting like I'm an asshole or you're acting like I'm a problem, it's probably because you're a problem.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Melora Hardin is an actor. She sat down with me in New York City to talk about the work.
Do you have a typical way that you like to begin your preparation process when you get a new character?
Yeah, I mean, I think well, first of all, I always read a script as a reader. That's the way I always start. I start, and as an audience member, and I'm also a director, so I think I really try to see the scenes and see the script. So I'm not really reading it. In fact, the first time I read a script, I will often, the very first time I read a script, usually for like interest, I'll just skip over almost all the stage directions and almost all the locations. I'll just like look like they're in a house, but I don't look at anything else, and I just read lines and I just read that. And then if I feel like there's something that I'm necessary to go back, I will, but I really read it really like, I want to read it fast, and I'm not a fast reader, so I like to read it fast. I like to cut out anything that might get in my way. Then when I've decided I do like it, and I'm reading it for, my work.
You're right.
I just really read it like I'm watching it, because I want to see it's probably the only time I really think about the result in any way, because I don't think about the result at all.
You give yourself that moment to think about the result.
Just
and then
to think
putting
about,
it away.
because I'm watching it as a movie in my head, and so I'm getting the laughs, and I'm getting the imaginary laughs, and I'm getting the imaginary emotion, and I'm getting the imaginary heart, and I'm getting the imaginary pull or tension or suspense or the jerk or the surprise, or so I allow for that experience. And once I've had that experience, then I kind of know where to point my arrows. Then I'm kind of like, okay, so now I know the I'll say the music of the music of the story, because at that point I'm not listening to the lyrics. I'm just listening to the music. And then then I go in and start looking at the lyrics and really trying to figure out what the lyrics mean. And then that's a heady process. And then as soon as I'm done with the heady process, then I completely let go of all of that. And it's very much then a real physical process. It's a real like body thing. It's like super important for me, I think, as a dancer and a singer and a songwriter, and like to really get inside the way the person feels to me physically, moves, dresses, looks, smells, that kind of thing. And that is really that's when I really become the person. And then all that heady work that I did, I'm not thinking about that anymore.
So it's at play, but it's at play underneath. Is that what you mean? Like you don't think about it, but it still was necessary to go through that for some reason. It's still in you. I
guess I just have a lot of trust. It's kind of like when you think of a memory, or you think of something you want to tell your friend, and you're sitting there like, what was that? And if you do that for too long, you put pressure on your brain, you can't remember it. But if you just go like, if it's important, I'll remember it. And you have that faith, and then a half an hour later, or a day later, or an hour later, it comes back to you, or it never comes back to you. And you don't fret either way, because you've really truly let that go. Well, it's clearly not there. Whereas if you put the pressure on yourself, you're going to sit there and struggle, and then you might be like, I can't believe I couldn't remember that, and I wanted to tell him that, and oh my God, it's just, I know that the important things I work very specifically. I'm very specific when I'm doing the brain work. And I really enjoy that, and I enjoy making those choices. And then I try those choices out, and in rehearsal I try them out, or in my own rehearsal time, or by myself, and then I'll think, and then I'll try it, and I'll be like, yeah, okay, so it felt like you wanted to do that, but it's not. I'm not going big enough, or it's not. So there's something I need to add to it, or whatever, and then I'll get more into that, and then. I wouldn't consider myself a great rehearsal actress. I mean, I tell that to, especially with movies and television, I tell that to a lot of directors I work with. I say, look, just so you know, I'm not a great rehearsal actress. Like, I'm not going to be giving you my performance until we roll camera. That's just how I am. It's just what I do. I'll give you a sense of it. I can give you the shape of it and the vibe for it. But and when it comes to theater, theater is just a slower process of the same.
Yeah.
And theater directors are more comfortable with the fact that you're spending like time being very heady and slow, and you're looking at the paper, and you're like, you're not trying to embody anything super fast. With film and television, when that camera rolls, you got to be there. You got to be there, and you got to be on it right then, So I learned very, very young that if you do, if you waste any of it on rehearsal, for me anyway, I'm just not a person who can repeat and repeat and repeat emotional, realities. I like more to, if we're going to do it 10 times, I'm going to probably give you 10 options, because I'm going to play around with it. They might be extremely subtle, but I'm not going to be repeating, especially if I feel like I really nailed what I was going for. And
it's already on camera, it's already done.
I'm not going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And in fact, and I mean, unless a director was like specifically like, we really didn't get that because the camera broke, or because somebody messed up or went out of focus. Can you do it again? Then I'm like, yeah, I can, but I gotta just. Let's figure it out. But if we've got it and everybody's happy and we've all got what we want, then if you're going to have me do it 10 more times, I'm doing that because we're going to find some new stuff.
I get it.
Part of the way of finding new stuff is to release all your ideas. Even if you had great ideas, you have to have the fluidity to, and that's really what freedom is, I think, in art, is the ability to constantly be giving up, constantly be, writers talk about killing their babies, it's constantly about like, well, that was a great idea until I sat across this actor and found that actor isn't gonna play the scene like that, even a little bit. So that idea is not working. So how do I make it work now?
Yeah.
Oh, they're doing something. That's interesting. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna play off that.
Yeah. How beneficial was it for you to kind of have your training happen so early, and then to have all these years of experience as a young person in front of the camera? So that becomes like almost like years and years of training.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm really, really lucky because I come from 2 actors. My parents are both actors, and my mother was an acting teacher, Diane Hill Hardin, for extraordinary young actors, like Leonardo DiCaprio and River Phoenix and Joaquin Phoenix and Molly Ringwald and, Kelly Martin and, just Jessica Biel and, on and on and on.
Yeah.
Maggie Gyllenhaal, Jake Gyllenhaal, And my dad, is a character actor. And so I had great training. My mom's studio was called the Young Actors Space, Exploring the Joy of Acting. And she was just not a power tripper. She's so incredible with young people. She's so in her power when she was teaching. And I even co-taught with her as I got older, and, we did some stuff together. And she just talk about the joy of acting, and that, we're entertainers, and if we're not entertained by ourselves, then we're not entertaining anybody else. And I think that she created such a safe space, especially for young people as they're coming up, and children, children need to feel really safe, just like adults, but especially child actors. And I found my experience as a child actor was that going on a set, everybody embraces you. Everybody loves you. Everyone is so, they want to take the kids in right away. And they're so loving and sweet, and you feel really bonded, and you feel like, it feels like playing. It always felt like playing to me. Plus, I was a really serious ballerina, so I thought I was going to be a ballet dancer and that acting was my hobby. And I think that was probably good too. And my parents were never trying to live vicariously through me. They were always really focused on craft and not on fame. And I would say, like, you know, when your father's a brain surgeon and you become a brain surgeon, you have to figure out how you're a brain surgeon. You're not going to be exactly how your dad was a brain surgeon. So that was the stuff that I had to really work on. I had to work on how I'm going to be in the workspace. Some of that I had to work on because I would hear my dad come back and talk about the workspace in his way, and I learned some of that. And he had some, what's the word? I'm a great collaborator and he's not. And so I had to kind of see where we were really different. And maybe I had picked up a few bad habits there from just hearing the way he was.
You thought that was necessary to be like that.
Yeah, like he used to talk about a lot of pushback with directors and with even with producers. And he kind of was suspicious of the business, and instead of just embracing it as a business and understanding it's a business, it's art within a business. Right. And the business leads. It's the business of Hollywood, the business. People don't talk about it as the Hollywood business. They talk about the business. Right. They say, are you in the biz, right? Right. So those were things that I had to work on. And but yeah, I had way over 10,000 hours by the time I had hit, 18 years old. And I went to Stella Adler when she was still alive and took her class when I was 18 years old for the very reason that you're saying, which is I wondered if I had acquired or accrued a bunch of...
And she would have pulled them out, wouldn't she?
And she would have, well, not only that, but she was a tough teacher, and particularly tough on women, and even more tough on beautiful women. And so I was really scared, but I was also turned on by the challenge.
You wanted your butt kicked if it was necessary.
I did. I wanted to know. Yeah. Well, I wanted to know. I wanted to know. And I've always been a real truth seeker, truth teller. And I wanted to know. And so I chose a very intense scene. I did the cigarette burning scene in Agnes of God, and I played Agnes. And I, at that point in my career, I was really quite, let's say, locked up about emotional scenes. I thought that I had a problem with emotional scenes, even though I was really, as a child actor, thought of as a dramatic actress and was always doing those scenes. But I even went and my mother took me to a hypnotist when I was like 16 because I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to do the emotional scene. And the hypnotist was like, you don't have any trouble crying. You're fine. Because I was crying in the hypnosis session, of course. And he's like, I think you just have to get out of your own way. Yeah. So I picked a scene that's, and it was I would say it was a turning point for me as an actor, because Stella Adler was really, just her laser focus. Yeah. And I had done immaculate preparation. I had built myself a costume, and I had created an entire environment in my imagination, and I had made myself a wooden cross that I wore around my neck, and I had endowed that with all this meaning and specificity, and the actress I was working with wasn't very good playing the therapist, but I still was like, I'm doing my work, Right. I sort of did all this work on my own and then some work with her. And then we got up to do the scene, and I took all this time to like put I had made myself a whole white habit, like a full-on white out of white sheets. And and I took all this time, like I took extra time to put it on in a really reverent way. And I was doing all this really amazing preparation work that I had learned from my mother and in her classes. And I went in and we started the scene, and we got into it, and it gets emotional pretty fast for my character. And I remember getting kind of a little emotional, and right at that moment, Stella stopped, and she said, "Stop." And she was talking to the therapist woman. She said, I think she might have said, "Melora, stay right where you are." And I just decided, I just stayed. Like I didn't break. I just stayed and waited and stayed in my moment. And she talked to her and told her some things, and then continue. And we went right back in. And then we went on, and I was even more, it was like now I was like in floods of tears, and it was like starting to get kind of frantic in terms of the story I was telling. She stopped again, talking to her again. And I just sort of went, whoop, and I didn't ever, not one time did I fall out of the scene. I just stayed in the scene, and but I pulled all the emotion in, held it, stayed in my moment, waited. Okay, continue. Went back and just came back and right in the moment. And when we finished, she spoke to her again and sort of had some more things to say. And then she just turned to me and she said, "I have nothing to say to you. That was brilliant."
Wow. Wow. Do you think that she was trying to knock you off your game by talking to her 3 times? And seeing if you can get back into it. Is that what the rationale was?
Yeah, I'm sure she was testing. I have no doubt she was testing, because she tested a lot with actors. And she talked a lot about natural. I don't like natural. I don't like this whole thing about natural. There's no such thing as natural. Yeah. That's not what we're doing, And I used to love that, I think she could tell that I understood that this is a craft. Yeah. And I had the benefit of really understanding the craft. I think that was the thing that made me go, okay, I can do this.
Wow. Yeah, you must have been on cloud 9 walking out of there with that.
I was pretty like, I always thought that I was talented, and I got lots of great feedback that I was working all the time. But that was like, okay.
Yeah.
This is Stella. For whatever reason, I had put Stella Adler up as on a pedestal, and I had been sitting in that class for quite a few weeks and seeing how incredibly and how right she was, and how intense and tough and sometimes mean she was, and particularly to beautiful young women. Yeah. And so I was bracing for it, and yet I just was like, okay, like balls to the walls, like I'm giving it everything, and we'll see what happens. And then, that was a pretty incredible feedback. And I think what I needed at 18, I really did, because I had been doing it all my life, because, I had great success as a child actor. I'd been able to transfer, from that to being an ingenue. I think I was like deciding, is this just because I got lucky? Because I saw a lot of child actors that worked all the time, but they weren't particularly good. And ultimately they ended up, leaving the business or something. And I just was like, I think I'm really good, but I needed someone to tell me that I was
someone like that.
Someone like that.
And did that, because you're here in New York at that point, right? And did that?
No, I was in LA.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
She taught in LA.
Okay.
Yeah.
But did you ever think, hearing that though, that, maybe I need to go on the stage now, even though that's not what I've been doing, even though like that's where the actor gets to be the actor. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think I always wanted to be on stage, and I did. I ended up doing a 3-person Athel Fugard play, that was another really important moment in my life, because he really also, he directed it and wrote it, and basically there was another wonderful actress, Nancy Travis, was playing the character, and they were doing it at the Beverly Wilshire Theater in LA, and she had to drop out because she was doing, I think she had to go do Internal Affairs, that movie that she did or something. So she had to leave. So they weren't planning on replacing her, but then they had this audition and I came in to potentially replace her. And he liked what I did so much that he completely, usually when you do that, when you take over for somebody else, they don't allow you to reblock or, especially when it's three actors and they're now used to doing it this way, and it's up, like it's already been reviewed and whatever. Right. But he liked what I did so much and felt that it was so fresh and my own take on it that he let me reblock. We had special rehearsals. He called the LA Times back in to do another review with me as the new, Yeah. So those were also very, very heartening and incredibly encouraging moments in my young life as an actor. Yeah. But I also was I was super serious, and then it was kind of fun to realize now I think I was always I'm a dancer, I'm a singer, but I was musical theater. Now, it's just not serious enough for me. Now I'm musical theater, comedy, bring it on. Let's do it all the time. Yeah. I love it. It's so joyful. Yeah. You know, and I love that I've been able to do that and people respond.
And what about coming back onto a show like Monk's Last Case is out, but coming back to something that you put away, having to get into the skin of somebody that you said goodbye to. Talk to me about that. Yeah,
I guess, it was interesting to kind of try to remember. But again, it is, I always say that making movies and theater and TV and it's the greatest team sport of all. You rely on, part of how you remember is you do that table read of that script that was written by Andy Breckman that created the show in the first place. And he remembers for you. And that's where it starts. He remembers. And then you start remembering because the language and the story and the characters start reminding you off the page of who they were and who you were as them. And it's a slow process, but it's I remember Tony in the table read, which we did on Zoom because they were already starting and some of us were not there yet. And I was, in LA and other people were other places. And I remember Tony being and I felt that way too, because also Trudy she's sort of omnipresent, but she's not incredibly verbal. She's very important to some very key moments, and she's very much a part of Monk's world and space and headspace and emotional space, and so she drives him in really important ways. So I was in the table read, I was just wow, I loved that. I really was able to kind of, hearing the script read loud, and I was starting to remember, and you could feel everybody a little bit remembering and percolating, and then when I got to the set, and just that same warmth that Tony and I just have for each other. He's just such a wonderful person and obviously actor, but he's just a wonderful person. He's so warm and easy for me to be around. And plus we had it directed by Randy Zisk, who directed a lot of those. And I've known Randy for years and years, and he has so much warmth. And Andy Breckman has so much warmth and so much, everyone was so happy to be together that I think the first scene I shot, I think I was just sitting there watching Hector and Tony do a scene. And then at one point he looks over at me, but the scene is very long, and I was sitting there for it. And I when it was done, I said, I feel like I was just, at an actor studio, or the studio. Like it was such a sweet, relaxing sort of way to remember who Trudy was again, to just to watch them do their characters that they'd done for years and years and years, and do what actors do, and just it was just like I just had to be.
Yeah.
I didn't really have to do anything but be and interact with that warmth, because that's what it's all about for Trudy and Trudy Monk and Mr. Monk. Is like, it's all about the love. There's so much love, and the love is so easy. And there's shows you do where it's not so easy to do what you have to do. Yeah. And then Monk is just one of those ones that is just, it's like a piece of cake, because there is so much real warmth between Tony Shalhoub and Melora Hardin, not just between Trudy Monk and Mr. Monk, or Adrian Monk. There's like true personal warmth. And it just feels nice. It's not always like that, and that's fine too, but it's so wonderful when it is like that.
I mean, what is the ideal environment on a set if you could build it so that you can be your best? Explain to me what's going on in the environment around.
I think that I can't really tell you probably too much about that, but I can tell you a lot about what isn't good.
That's good. Yeah.
Because, like, I assume we're going to talk a little bit about Golden Vanity.
Yes.
And one of the things that was joyful about Golden Vanity was that it was the first-time filmmakers and, young, enthusiastic. They had gotten a script that they wrote for me, to me, and I had said yes, and we were making this movie. That was their dream. It was like a dream come true for them. And when I bring myself to a show, a character, I don't just bring my resume, and I don't just bring my credits. I also bring my humanity and my personhood. And I'm 56 years old, and I've been in this business for 50 years, and I have worked with a lot of people, and I've worked really hard on myself. I've put as many thousands of hours probably into my self-development and, work on myself through, coaching and therapy, and, that I have a lot to give. And I think that for a long time, I didn't realize that. And so what was lovely for me about Golden Vanity was these were two young people in their late 20s who really felt like they'd won the lottery. And yet they really had creative vision. They were not just like kowtowing to me and bowing down. They were in full creative collaboration with me. Intelligent, thoughtful, sensitive, playful collaboration with me. Respectful, joyful. And that's kind of all I'm looking for all the time. Opportunities to be creative. When you come to make a movie, you're just making a movie. And what was so great about Golden Vanity again was that because it was such a micro budget movie, $150,000 they had raised from family and friends. I made like $1 on the movie, I'm not kidding. We had 2 weeks of rehearsal, Max and I, in a apartment where we taped off the room that we were going to be in, the set. And that was like private, just Max and I time. Nobody interrupted us. We just played. We made it work. We were both 150% in. And we were, he's super creative and smart. I'm super creative and smart. We're coming together to do this. Then we had 5 days to shoot this film.
Wow.
So it's a crew of 15 people. There's no room for anybody to do anything other than make the fucking movie.
Yeah.
And I just am kind of like, that's what I love. I love when we're all just there to bring our best, bring our A game, and make the movie, make the TV show, do the work. You know, don't bring your personal bullshit into the space.
Right.
And so when you say, you know, what makes a perfect environment? What do you need? It's different all the time. Like I'm not stuck on like, if you're not silent, I'm gonna, you know, I can't do my work. I think that would be, I think that's a sign of somebody who hasn't done their work on themselves or their process. Or they might just be inexperienced and they might be scared and they might be, you know, I mean, I have the luxury of being super confident about that. I know my craft.
Yeah.
And I know that is a luxury. I know that a lot of people don't feel that way. And I know that a lot of people struggle with tons of insecurity and, you know, and so I'm willing to hold someone's hand. I'm willing to try to show up for them, to help them. But not if they're an asshole and not if they're trying to take me down their rabbit hole. And I have over the years, I was too tolerant, I think, when I was in my 20s of some bad behavior. And I was too, way too tolerant. So I think now I'm like, I just kind of have a no asshole rule. I'm not interested in, I'm always just wanting more and more expansive, creative, you know, opportunities. And I love, that's why I'm like so behind, you know, this is this tiny little film that, you know, I don't even know if, when, how people are going to see it. I mean, I know what I'm doing is in the festivals and it's getting great response, and we won 5 awards in our first 3 festivals, and, you know, and we're, you know, we put it up for 7 days in Fort Lauderdale, and so we could qualify for some awards, and we're putting it up in you know, LA so we could qualify for awards. For 7 days, and that's exciting. And I hope if anyone's in LA listening to this podcast, they can, or be in LA between December 11th and December 17th. We're having 3 showings a day, and I would love, I have to say that specifically because that's right now the only way that the public can actually see it. And I would love them to see it because I get a little tired of people saying, you know, oh, you know, it's just another Marvel movie. It's just another, like, nobody thinks of any creative ideas. No, there are creative ideas. There are creative things. There are amazing films out there. And this happens to be one that I think is extremely special. And so I'm just doing like a bunch of, you know, grassroots PR and trying to get it seen. And that's been a learning curve for me. When you say, you know, I would say that's where I'm most challenged. I'm more challenged in this producerial role than I am in my creative roles. But I'm finding that I'm actually quite creative as a producer if I continue to think of it that way. And if I think of it as like, they are my creative babies. And my 2 babies are now young women, and they're, you know, they've flown the nest, and their lives are just beautiful, and they're doing great. So I have less, I have less need to. I still mother them, of course, but I don't need to be mothering them quite the way that these creative babies. They need my nurturing. They need my maternal instinct and my maternal energy. So I'm really working hard to do that. But as far as like an environment, it's like all environments are different. I think if you go in and think it's got to be like this for me to do my work, of course there's going to be, but I'll make requests too. I'm at a point in my career where if it is, you know, if it is noisy and I need it to be quiet, I'll just say, hey guys, I can hear it when your phone goes off like four rooms away. I know you think that you can't, but someone's got to go take care of that phone.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And speaking up is not a problem anymore, right, for you at this point?
Not really.
And it really shouldn't be a problem for people doing this work, I think, because it's just important.
Yeah, it's important. And
distractions and all
right. I even think, like, with raising my kids, my husband and I used to always say, we employed this idea that we're going to say yes as often as possible, so that when we say no, it means no.
Yeah.
And we save no for real no's.
Yeah.
We don't say no for every little thing.
Right.
I'm like that as an actor too.
Yeah.
If you want to come to me and say, hey, can we try it, like, you know, make it, I know it's really red, but can we try and make it blue? Mm-hmm. I'll be like, well, I might not get it. And I'll be like, well, you're going to need to tell me why we're doing it blue, because I'm not sure I get it. So explain that. And then if they explain it in a way that kind of enrolls me, I'll be like, sure, yeah, let's try it blue. Why not?
Right.
And then we try it blue, and it's like, what did you think? I liked this about it, but I didn't like that about it. Yeah, me too. Or collaborate, find out what we want. Right. Oh, maybe it's actually green. Let's try green, you know? Right. So I like that, and I'm willing to do that. But there are times I'll say no. And when I say no, it means no.
Yeah.
And I do expect, you were talking about a series, I expect on the longevity of a series that you've worked with me enough to know that I say yes mostly.
Yeah.
So when I say no, don't challenge my no.
Right.
Don't tell me, don't say, can you just do it one time this way? Because I'm going to say, no, I just said no. And have you ever heard me say no? I won't try that.
Right.
Like, I have a reason for wanting to do it this way.
Right, right.
And so just let me have this, especially on a series, because on a series, you at a certain point in the longevity of a series, you kind of know your character more than anyone else does.
Anyone, right? Anyone that could come, no matter how many times somebody's directed the show.
That's right. You just do. And so, and the really good directors, they do understand that. They do. So yeah, I mean, I've had, but I, to be honest, I don't have many run-ins like that. I have, you know, but one of the greatest things too about Golden Vanity was I was the only person to have to contend with.
when they come to you with this script and you realize, oh my God, this is just me. It's both a dream for an actor.
Right.
This is a one-woman show on film. Yeah. And also it could just be like, wow, do I want to take this risk on this with people that haven't directed before, with people that haven't made a movie? But tell me, did you have to meet them and trust them first?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
You had a real.
Yeah, there'd be no way I was diving into this without them being. They had to be the people that they were. They had to be the people that they were. They had to be, you know, they'd obviously written a very compelling script.
Right.
And I had taken about 4 one-person show writing classes because I've been interested in a one-person show for a super long time and been writing, and I have reams and reams of, you know, things that I've been writing. And so that was why my agent got it to me, was because he knew that I had been doing this. And so he's like, you know, it's worth a read, you know. So I read it and I was like, oh, this is really good. Let me meet them.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, how am I going to feel about these 2 people? Because it was integral to whether I would do it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know who Mabel was when you're reading it, or did you have to take time to find her? Like how easy or hard was that?
Again, I knew who she was as an audience, watching the movie in my mind.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't have a clue that she was going to become what I made her.
Interesting.
Yeah. No.
Was it those 2, did you say 2 weeks that you were rehearsing? Is that when you found her?
Yes, that was when.
So you were confident in those 5 days. You weren't you didn't have to explore in the way.
No.
Yeah.
I knew who she. Oh, for sure, I knew who she was. Yeah. No, there was too much to find out about her. I had to work with the accent, and that was important. And I had to work with the and the costume. I brought in the costume designer Dina Appel, and we built that. Isn't it amazing? I mean, that's real fabric from the 1960s, and we built that dress like, as I was saying earlier, it's very, very purposeful. Like the wig, I brought in a friend, Jean Weber, who did my hair, and she created the wig, and and then Tonya Verna, who did my makeup. Like all of those elements were so intentional, because I really do work from the outside in. Once I've done all the heady work and all the work and all the work, the kind of grind work with all the sort of heady stuff, then I have to be able to look in the mirror and see the person. I have to be able to see the person. I mean, when I did Chicago on Broadway, the last thing I would do before I went on stage was I would look in the mirror, because there was a mirror right there. And I would save the last little bit of red lipstick to do before I went on, so that I could sit and look at myself and look at my lips and see Roxy Hart.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was definitely sitting down with Max Abram and Taylor Minus and sort of talking about their script and being sort of very impressed by their intelligence, their vision, and clearly they were excited, passionate, and they had real vision. They had real vision, and that's what you want. You want, and it's funny, I have a friend of mine, Louis Laterre, who is the director of this X Fast and the Furious, the X, the last one. That was a $400 million movie.
Yeah.
And he saw Golden Vanity, and he said a similar thing that you said, which was like, Melora, a person like you, at where you are in your career, it says a lot about you that you would be willing to take such a giant risk where everything can go wrong. Anyone that knows anything about film, or, it's not just you on screen, I mean, it is in this case, but it's also the production design. Yeah. It's the, and so of course I worked hard to pull in creative people that I knew were going to show up with sparkle, which they did. But also, like, they, Max and Taylor pulled in people. I mean, they found the production designer, they found the DP, and Bryce Fortner is incredible what he did, and the dance that we did, and the production design's amazing, and the art direction is amazing, and like everything was so high quality. But I did find that out at the first meeting too, because I could see where their heads were. I could see, because it's just like when you meet an actor at a party, you meet someone at a party who says they're an actor. You know if they're an actor or they're not. You don't even have to see them act.
Yeah.
Even if you've never seen them in anything and they've never done anything that you've seen, you just know whether they can act or not. You just know. Yeah. It's the same as sitting across from Max and Taylor that first time. Yeah. Like, I can feel they're either filmmakers or they're not. Yeah. And they were filmmakers. Yeah. And they were collaborators. Most importantly in this project, they were filmmakers with vision, and they were collaborators. Yeah.
And that's the best of them, I think, are collaborators.
Yeah. Yeah, it
even
is.
With the strong vision and collaboration.
Right.
Hand in hand.
Yeah. So again, I mean, it's funny because you asked that question and I started by saying I can tell you what not to do, but all I've talked about is what to do.
I was going to say.
Yeah, and that's that would be number one for me. Yeah. Would be the way my process works best is I feel your adoration of me, your respect for me, and I know that you truly aren't just like saying one thing to my face and then going and sitting at the monitor and going like, I can't even fucking believe the way. Right. If I feel an inkling of that, you will not get the best from me.
But if I feel like sniff that out too,
you can sniff that out. And if I feel like you're in the game with me, even if someone else over there is misbehaving, but if I feel like my main players, my director, my producer, my co-star, and sometimes it's not your co-star, but I think it's even harder when it's not your director. Yeah, I think it's almost like you can almost make it work with your co-star. Yeah. But if your director, especially in film and television, if you don't feel like your director is kind of in love with you, and I mean in love with your process, in love with your work, in love with the way you play this character, you're kind of going to be always looking over your shoulder and like a
Or
little
it means
insecure.
it means, tell me if this is wrong, that means you have to pull the energy then from somewhere else. Like you have to do it. You're going to have to do it. You're going to get it done.
And
You've
do
done
it
it before.
Yeah, you're a professional, so you do it.
You find a way, but why? Why? But it's so much easier when you have that energy coming at you from that person.
Yeah. And when you're working on a series, you're getting new directors all the time.
Right.
You're not going to like them all.
Right.
You're not going to work great with all of them.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, being a professional is just showing up and getting your job done.
Right.
And I can do that too. And I do that quite well, you know?
Right.
And sometimes that means I need to get you to be over there and I'll be over here and don't talk to me very much. Yeah. And other times it's like, I want to talk to you a lot. Mm-hmm. But I guess just with maturity too, I like most people. Mm-hmm. So if I don't like you, it's probably your problem.
Yeah.
And I also think if I don't like you and I can't work with you,
yeah,
it's also your problem.
Yeah.
Because I can work with almost anybody. I can work under almost any circumstances. Mm-hmm. I can get along. I don't have to like love you, but I can get along with almost anybody. Mm-hmm. And so if you're acting like I'm an asshole or you're acting like I'm a problem, it's probably because you're a problem. Yeah. Because I just know that for myself now, living on this planet for 56 years.
Yeah.
And that took a long time to convince myself of that. But it's like, now I kind of know, and I get to give that benefit to, hopefully, the young actors that are listening to this. If you're a person that doesn't like most people, then you have to be suspicious of yourself.
Right. It probably is you.
It probably is you. That's right.
Yeah.
And if you're somebody that is constantly like, everybody, they fucked up and they did that and they did this. Well, you got to look at you. Yeah. Because that's not really, the world reflects back to you kind of what you are and what you expect.
Right.
And now I think that it's a great thing that I think most people are innocent till proven guilty.
Yeah.
And it's also burned me a few times because I've been maybe slightly naive to some people that were real, like, toxic people.
Yeah.
But I think I'd rather be that kind of person, and I'd rather that life taught me the lesson, and maybe now I can share the lesson with people more like me. And then you gotta like reach out for help. You gotta ask people. You gotta have friends, family, coaches, therapists, trusted advisors, teachers, that you can go to them and say, what do I do? This person is doing this and I'm pretty sure it's them. Yeah. But they're making it feel like it's me and I don't know how to protect myself and be creative. And like I would say to young actors, like, or just new actors, whatever, just don't feel like you have to be on an island, because you don't, and you shouldn't be. And in fact, I think it's just like, it slows the process down. Yeah. My coach is so incredible because he's like, if you're having trouble in a relationship, don't call your friend who's having a trouble in their relationship.
Yeah.
Call your friend who's got a great relationship that you look at and you admire. Yeah. And say, how do you make your relationship that relationship that I admire? Yeah. Don't like sit on the phone for 2 hours with someone that's moaning and groaning about their partner. Right. Because you don't get anywhere that way. It kind of maybe feels seductive and kind of like you're scratching an itch for a minute, but I always want to take the opportunity to have the learning. Yes. I'm always looking for the learning. I'm looking for the education in everything I do, in my intimate relationships, in my personal relationships, in my work relationships, in my creative, endeavors. I'm always looking for the education.
Yeah. Yeah. On day 5, though, were you starting to think, man, I'll take even a bad co-star right now. I just need to play off somebody.
No. No. Oh, no, I loved every minute of it. Isn't that interesting? I loved every minute of it. I loved every minute of it. And I was like a pig in mud making Golden Vanity. Yeah. I really was. Right. It was just...
Because it's also because you can control, right? I mean, if you can control just from yourself the ups and downs of this story, that must be like such a high in a way.
It's such a high, and it's such a high to, again... Remember, I'm not a great rehearsal actress. So the camera rolls and I get to surprise myself.
Right.
And that's really fun.
Right.
That's really fun.
And you don't have to worry about somebody not being on your level, not to blow smoke or to, but
Right,
just
right.
like
Or
wherever you're
just
going,
showing up, right? In the
Right.
same way I'm showing up. Like show up with like, you know, I mean, I did a long time ago, I did Absolute Power where Clint Eastwood directed it and Gene Hackman and I played opposite each other. And, you know, and Gene, you know, he's a great example of somebody who, he started our, you know, he was as old as my dad, so he's got to be, you know, my dad just turned 94. I think he's 90 something.
Yeah.
And so I'm quite a lot younger than him, like decades.
Yeah.
And the first thing he said to me was, "Oh, I'm really nervous about our scene." And this is what I mean by don't suffer on an island.
Right.
Expose. This is Gene Hackman.
Right.
Gene
One of
Hackman.
the best to ever do it.
Yeah. So he says to me, I'm really nervous about our scene. So I'm at this time 30, 40, 50, 60. He's 70 something.
Yeah.
And I just go, Gene, don't worry. I'm going to take care of you. And that was it.
Amazing.
He set a place for me at lunch every single day right next to him. He loved me because he exposed his feeling of worry about doing a scene, a 72-year-old man doing a scene with a 30-year-old woman.
Yeah.
It was a very sexual scene and violent scene. And the first day we're on set and we both have to come in slightly intoxicated. And, you know, Clint kind of walks around and kind of goes, you know, you just come in. I kind of want you to kind of be here. And then at some point you end up over here. And I don't know, you want to try one? That was how that went.
I bet you that's how he does it.
And I looked at Gene and Gene looked at me and I was like, sure. And he's like, sure. So we go outside. That was the rehearsal. So we go outside, we close the doors and we're out there and we both have our glasses, and I had my glass, and I was kind of I had my whiskey or something in it, or he came in with a glass. I think that was what it was. He was doing his glass. That's what he was doing, and he had like a bourbon or something in it that, you know, like a pretend bourbon. So he was doing his glass, and I could see him doing his work. And so I started kind of flirting with him, and I just sort of like leaned my body, just like my shoulder, into him a little bit. And he leaned back into me. And I was just like, we're good.
Yeah.
I didn't even need to think about anything else.
Yeah.
Like he was there.
Yeah.
He was there for me and with me.
Yeah.
That's like heaven. Yeah. That's heaven. Heaven. He could do no wrong after that moment.
Right.
And I could kind of do no wrong because we just were there to save each other, catch each other, make this scene happen, be in this scene, do the job.
Yeah.
Do the work.
Yeah.
Have the fun of the work. That's the other thing.
Yeah. Fun.
They don't call it a play for nothing. When I teach acting, and I've taught acting, they don't call it a play for nothing.
Yeah.
It's play.
Melora Hardin, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This was so nice.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham, formerly IFP. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.